one of the darkest days on Wall Street.
In 2008, SpaceX was one failed rocket launch away from bankruptcy. Elon Musk had enough money left for just one final attempt.
6 p.m. Christmas Eve, 2008. It was the last hour of the last day that it was possible. We would have gone bankrupt 2 days after Christmas otherwise.
Today, SpaceX is worth nearly $2 trillion, making it one of the most valuable companies on the planet. Some investors believe it could become the defining company of the 21st century. Others argue its valuation has drifted far beyond reality. So why are investors betting so heavily on SpaceX? What makes this company different from every other aerospace business? And could this become one of the greatest investments in history or one of its biggest disappointments? To understand why investors are willing to place such enormous bets on SpaceX, we first have to understand just how close the company came to disappearing altogether, long before reusable rockets became reality and before Starlink connected millions of people around the world. SpaceX was fighting for survival.
Did you think, I need to pack this in?
Never.
Why not?
I don't ever give up. I mean, I'd have to be dead or completely incapacitated.
The company was founded in 2002. Its mission sounded almost impossible: make humanity a multiplanetary species. But before anyone could dream about building cities on Mars, there was a much bigger problem to solve. Getting to space was simply too expensive. For decades, rockets worked the same way. They were launched once, completed their mission, and then fell back to Earth as scrap. Instead of walking away, Musk reached a different conclusion. If rockets were so expensive, maybe the industry itself needed to be reinvented. So he did something few people thought was possible. He started a rocket company. The timing couldn't have been worse. The aerospace industry was dominated by giants with decades of experience. Many experts believed a startup had no chance of competing. Then came the first launch attempt. It failed. Months of work gone in minutes. The second attempt also failed. Then came the third. Another failure. Each explosion burned through precious money and made it harder to convince employees, customers, and investors that SpaceX had a future. On September 28, 2008, Falcon 1 lifted off once again. This time that it reached orbit. For the first time in history, a privately developed liquid-fueled rocket successfully entered orbit. Everything changed. Just weeks later, NASA awarded SpaceX a commercial resupply services contract worth approximately $1.6 billion to deliver cargo to the International Space Station. SpaceX went from a company on the edge of collapse to one with a future, but surviving wasn't enough. To justify the enormous expectations investors have today, SpaceX had to become something far bigger than a rocket company, because rockets made SpaceX famous. But another business would convince investors that the company could become one of the most valuable enterprises in history. And that's where most people misunderstand SpaceX. By 2025, the company completed 165 orbital launches in a single year, more than any other launch provider on Earth. But here's where the story takes an unexpected turn. Most people assume this is where SpaceX makes its money. It isn't. Starlink changed everything. In 2025, roughly 3 out of every 4 Falcon 9 launches weren't carrying customer satellites at all. They were deploying SpaceX's own constellation, thousands of small satellites working together to create a global internet network. Unlike a rocket launch, which generates revenue only once, Starlink creates recurring income every month. And that's exactly the kind of business investors love, because recurring revenue is different. It doesn't depend on convincing a customer to buy again every year. It arrives month after month, year after year. By 2025, Starlink had become the largest source of revenue inside SpaceX, generating more than $11 billion annually and serving millions of customers across more than 160 countries. But perhaps the biggest advantage wasn't the satellites themselves, it was how they got into orbit. Most satellite internet companies have to pay someone else to launch their satellites. SpaceX launches its own. Every reusable booster lowered the cost of deploying more Starlink satellites. Every successful launch expanded the network. Every new satellite attracted more paying customers. The two businesses reinforced one another in a cycle that competitors have struggled to match. In many ways, the rockets had become something else entirely. They weren't just products anymore. They had become the infrastructure that allowed SpaceX to build an entirely different business. That's why many investors no longer see SpaceX as just another aerospace company. They see a company building the infrastructure of the future. Launch infrastructure, communications infrastructure, and potentially the backbone of industries that don't even exist yet. Starlink changed how investors valued the company because if SpaceX wasn't simply launching rockets, then perhaps investors weren't buying an aerospace company at all. They were buying a platform they believe could reshape the entire space economy. And that's why billions of dollars began flowing into SpaceX. But believing in the future and paying $2 trillion for it are two very different things. So who exactly is investing? Why are institutions and now everyday investors willing to pay such extraordinary prices for SpaceX? To answer that, we need to follow the money.
Engines full power and liftoff. Go Falcon, go Starlink.
By this point, it's easy to understand why investors are excited. A company that dominates rocket launches, but every investment has two stories: the story believers tell and the story skeptics can't ignore.
If you have a retirement account, whether it's a 401k or an IRA, well, pretty soon it could be invested in one of Elon Musk's companies, which is in fact losing quite a bit of money.
But SpaceX is no longer being valued like a fast-growing startup. It's being valued like a company expected to dominate the future. Your rising development costs could push profitability much further. Starship still faces enormous technical challenges, delays, failed test flights, while growing rapidly. Must continue attracting millions of new subscribers to justify today's expectations. Competition isn't standing still either. Governments are investing heavily in their own satellite constellations. Private companies continue developing reusable rockets, and regulators around the world are paying closer attention to spectrum rights, orbital congestion, and environmental concerns. Another risk is harder to measure. Elon Musk himself. Much of SpaceX's identity, long-term vision, and investor confidence is tied to one person. If Musk were to step away, lose focus, or simply no longer lead the company, there is no obvious successor waiting to replace him. Even SpaceX acknowledged that risk in its IPO filing, noting that the company carries no key person insurance on Elon Musk. Finally, there's perhaps the simplest question of all. What if the future simply arrives more slowly than investors expect? Many of the markets supporting today's valuation, large-scale space manufacturing, Mars exploration, and a mature space economy, may still be decades away. And markets aren't always patient. So, which brings us to one final question. Can anyone catch SpaceX? Because no matter how dominant a company becomes, it never competes alone.